do we actually do the building of user stories, especially thinly sliced user stories? So as you know, with Agile teams, what we're hoping to do is to build just a very thin slice of software all the way through the architecture with releasable quality. So it's really working software, but it touches on all the layers that it needs to touch on, but it's very thin. It doesn't do a whole lot. We're not going to release the software with just that story, but the story is demonstrable and has releasable quality. And one of the problems that we run into with Scrum teams is that over time, as they're building these things, they run into a problem. And the problem is that software doesn't really get sliced that way. Okay, it doesn't, let me see if I can wave my hands correctly here. It doesn't really get built like one slice and then another slice next to it and then another slice next to it, right? What actually happens is that you build out one slice and it touches all the parts of the architecture just barely. And then when you build the next story, you're actually touching the software that you built last time, right? So every time, and it tends to be the case that the things that get the most churn are the deepest in the architecture, things like the data structures, right? Those are the things that change most frequently. So the question becomes, well, how do we do that without breaking everything? And very quickly, teams run into this problem, and it's something that software developers feel very viscerally, but the rest of the team may not necessarily understand it. So that's one of the reasons why we have agile engineering practices like test-driven development and behavior-driven development. What we want to do in those cases when we start a new thinly sliced story is to express the behaviors, the new behaviors that we want to create in our software using some kind of testing framework, using Cucumber or using the unit testing framework, and to express those behaviors and then build those behaviors, express a few more behaviors, build a few more behaviors. Now, that's going to help in the short term, but what it really does is it protects the investment in the behaviors in the long term. Okay? So the stories and features that we've built in previous releases and previous sprints are all protected by these tests. So we can go in and make any change that we need to as long as we run the tests, and that will express all of the other behaviors and protects all of the other behaviors so that we can move forward with confidence. I've got a team that's still operating since 2002 out in Ann Arbor, Michigan. They've been working on this software for that long. They make changes every 2 weeks. And the last time that a software developer had to work an evening or a weekend was in 2004. Okay, so that's 14 years without a major show-stopping defect. 14 years. And by the way, this is a life-critical application, not just a mission-critical application. This is one of those applications where if you get something wrong, somebody might die. So it's very important to them to be doing the testing, and yet at the same time, they make changes days before they go live. So all of these things are possible.